Let me ask you this. Let me approach this another way. If a state decides to require a voter to prove who the voter says he is or she is, do you consider that racist? How about ballot harvesting? And I heard earlier you were talking about letting the tribal elders collect ballot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where the parties, and believe me, both parties will do it and probably are doing it, pay operatives to go out and help people with their ballots and collect their ballots. Are you okay with that, or are you against that?
I don't think it's an either or situation. I think it depends on what the conditions are, what the rules are, but making it easier for those who want to participate in elections to do so with safely and securely, I think it's
so you're okay with ballot harvesting?
Hey everybody, what you just saw? That's just a small taste of one of the most incredible exchanges I have seen in a Senate hearing in a long, long time. We are about to watch the full clip of Senator John Kennedy questioning Stacy Abrams, and let me tell you, it is a masterclass in how to cut through political spin with simple, common-sense questions. She's the one who's been all over the news calling this Georgia law Jim Crow 2.0, and Kennedy just takes that narrative apart, piece by piece. It's surgical.
I think I'm going to call on Senator Kennedy instead. Senator Kennedy?
Ms. Abrams, can you hear me? I don't know where to look. I hate these Zoom hearings.
Yes, sir.
In terms of voter confidence in our electoral system and perception of voter integrity and election, let me start over. I'm sorry. In terms of the confidence that Americans have in their electoral system, do you think we're better off having an election day or an election month?
I think we are better off having a process that allows every single American the opportunity to participate in elections. And given that the initial notion of an election day was based on an agrarian economy that no longer exists for millions of Americans, and given the fact that we have a number of Americans who are limited in their access because in states like Georgia, there is no paid time off for voting, I think we have to make every opportunity to make voting accessible to every American. There is no other entity that
let me
would be
stop you,
denied.
I've got a bunch of questions for you
Sure.
before you get off the subject and get me off. So you're okay with us not knowing, say, weeks or months after an election who the winner is?
Yes.
Okay.
We have had times in this country where we have not known.
Talking about the Georgia bill, help me understand. And I'm not interested in a 30,000-foot view. That's not meant to be a criticism. I'm speaking to myself, I guess. I'm not interested in platitudes. Tell me, you're against the Georgia bill, I gather. Is that right?
I'm against certain provisions of it, yes.
Okay, and I think you've called it a racist bill. Am I right?
I think there are provisions of it that are racist, yes.
Okay. Tell me specifically, just give me a list of the provisions that you object to.
I object to the provisions that remove access to the right to vote, that shorten the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks, that restrict the time that a voter can request and return an absentee ballot application, that eliminate
slow down for me, because our audio is not real good here.
Certainly.
Could you start over for me?
Certainly.
Thank you.
It shortens the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks.
Okay.
It restricts the time a voter can request and return an absentee ballot application.
Right.
It requires that a voter have a photo identification or some other form of identification that they're willing to surrender in order to participate in the absentee ballot process.
If I can stop you, that's where they're going to not comparing signatures, but to voter ID?
Yes, sir. And as Ms. Eiffel has pointed out, we would become only the 4th state in the nation to require voters to put at risk their identity.
What else? What else?
It eliminates over 300 hours of Dropbox availability.
Okay, what else?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Bans what? I'm sorry?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Okay.
Meaning that if you get to a precinct and you are in line for 4 hours and you get to the end of the line and you are not there between 5 and 7 p.m.,
Okay,
you
what
have to
else?
start all over again.
Is that everything?
No, it is not. No, sir. It restricts the hours of operation because it now, under the guise of setting a standardized timeline, it makes it optional for counties that may be may not want to see expanded access to the right to vote. They can now limit their hours. Instead of those hours being from 7 to 7, they're now from 9 to 5, which may have an effect on voters who cannot vote during business hours during early voting. It limits the voting
Okay, I get the
hours.
idea. I get the idea.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. Let me approach this another way. If a state decides to require a voter to prove who the voter says he is or she is, do you consider that racist?
Not at all, sir. Voter identification has been a part of the American theory of democracy almost from the beginning.
You're okay with it?
I support voter identification. Yes.
Okay. How about ballot harvesting? And I heard earlier you were talking about letting the tribal elders collect ballot. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where the parties, and believe me, both parties will do it and probably are doing it, pay operatives to go out and help people with their ballots and collect their ballots. Are you okay with that, or are you against that?
I don't think it's an either or situation. I think it depends on what the conditions are, what the rules are, but making it easier for those who want to participate in elections to do so with safely and securely, I think it's
So
worthy
you're
of
okay
consideration.
with ballot harvesting?
No, sir, I did not say that. I said, because that is a term of art that encompasses a wide range of behaviors. And even
Well,
your example.
I'm sorry,
not-
but I'm trying to get down from the platitudes and understand what you're for and against.
But sir, what I'm for is.
Help me with this. Let's suppose
Right.
that the Republican Party wanted to hire people to go out and knock on doors of voters and say, have you voted yet with your mail ballot? And they say no, and then the operatives are told to contact the voter and say, let me help you with your ballot. If you have any questions, I can even suggest who you might want to vote for. And after you vote, I'll collect the ballot for you and you make it easy. Is that okay?
Sir, I'm both an attorney and a former legislator, and it is not simply the words that you're saying.
I'm an
it's the
attorney and a current legislator, and I might
Yes, sir.
want to trade places with you. But keep going.
And so my point is, as you and I both know, that the context, the rules, and the structure matters. Now, in the very narrow circumstance that you just described, if there are no controls and if it turns into buying votes, of course I object to that.
Okay.
But if you look at the piecemeal components that you're describing, and if we are talking about how do we make it easier for voters to participate in elections, I'm not certain what that looks like, but what you described in this very specific and narrow construct, it sounds like you're in violation of a number of different rules, not the least of which is buying a vote.
All right, let me ask you one last question. Our chairman's really indulged me here. Do you think it was a smart thing for President Biden to do when he called everybody who supported the Georgia bill a racist?
I think that this bill is grounded in racial animus. I think that the language that we are using to describe.
Can I ask
this
you how
bill,
you know that, madam? I mean,
Because-
it's an honest question. How do you know that?
because for 15 years, the Republican Party of Georgia not only sanctioned but celebrated its vote by mail provisions. It was only after voters of color for the first time in 15 years successfully used those provisions in favor of the party that they disproportionately support that those rules changed. It is that for years, for more than nearly 2 decades, we had early voting hours that supported voters that were perfectly fine. It was only after communities of color used those provisions
But
in
why
excess
doesn't
of
that hurt black people and white people and brown people? This is what I'm
I
trying
think
to
it hurts everyone. I
Let's just go through it. He asks the first perfect question. Are we better off with an election day or an election month? She doesn't answer the question. She immediately goes into this rambling speech about, get this, an agrarian economy. What? An agrarian economy? That's just a fancy political science term for a society based on farming. She's literally saying our election laws are based on when farmers in the 1800s had to be home. It's a classic dodge, a red herring to throw you off the scent. She can't defend election month because it sounds ridiculous, so she just pivots. But Kennedy, and this is why he's so good, he doesn't let it go. He follows up. He says, "So you're okay with us not knowing, say, weeks or months after an election who the winner is?" And what does she say? What is the word she says? Yes. Yes. She is openly okay with weeks or months of chaos not knowing who won an election. That one word tells you everything. It's not about a process. It's about giving as much time as possible, as much confusion as possible to get the results she wants. That is a terrifying answer. An average person hears that and thinks, that's insane. You have an election, you count the votes, you get a winner, period. Okay, so then Kennedy really zeroes in. This is my favorite part. He says, "Help me understand. I'm not interested in platitudes." That, right there. Platitudes just means those empty, feel-good phrases politicians use that don't really mean anything. He's speaking for all of us. We are so sick of politicians talking in these vague, high-level buzzwords. He calls her out on it. He says, "You called this bill racist. Prove it. Give me a list." So she starts giving her list, and what is it? She's upset they shortened the runoff period. She's upset they're restricting drop boxes, you know, those unmanned boxes they put out in 2020. She's mad they're changing early voting hours. And of course the big one. She's mad they're requiring ID for an absentee ballot. Now listen to that. You can agree or disagree with those things as policy, but are they racist? Is having a 4-week runoff racist? Is wanting an ID to vote by mail racist? She is trying to sell you the idea that basic election rules that many blue states have, are somehow the new Jim Crow. It's offensive, and Kennedy is right to call her on it. And then, oh man, then he lays the trap, and she walks right into it. He asks her, point blank, if a state decides to require a voter to prove who they are, you consider that racist? He's got her. She's stuck. She knows that 80% of Americans, including the vast majority of black and brown voters, support voter ID. It's just common sense. You need an ID to buy beer, to get on a plane, to cash a check. So she can't say yes, or she'll look like a total extremist. So what does she say? Not at all, sir. I support voter identification. Gotcha. He got her. The whole hearing could have ended right there. How can you, on one hand, say I support voter ID, and on the other hand call a bill that requires voter ID racist? Her entire argument, the entire Jim Crow 2.0 inches narrative, it just completely fell apart, right there. She admitted the central mechanism isn't racist. So what is she even talking about? But Kennedy's not done. He smells blood in the water. He moves right on to ballot harvesting. And that's another term you hear a lot. It's not complicated. It's when paid political operatives go door to door and collect other people's ballots. They take your ballot, not you, not the mailman, a stranger from a campaign. He asks, "Is that okay?" Look at her squirm. It's a term of art. It depends on the rules. It's not an either-or. It's a yes or no question. Is it okay for paid political hacks to take possession of other people's ballots? She cannot bring herself to say no. That should tell you everything. She is 100% in favor of ballot harvesting, but no, she can't say it out loud. Finally, Kennedy brings it all home. He asks her about President Biden calling every single person who supports this common-sense bill a racist. And again, she dodges. She pivots and says the bill is grounded in racial animus. Racial animus, another one of those big, vague phrases. It just means racially motivated hatred. To take that political motive, which is as old as time, and call it racist, is an insane, irresponsible leap in logic. So let's just sum this up. Senator Kennedy asked simple, direct questions. Stacy Abrams dodged, pivoted, and most importantly, contradicted herself. She says she supports voter ID but calls a voter ID bill racist. She refuses to condemn a clear-cut, corrupt example of ballot harvesting. And she claims she can magically see the motivations in the hearts of her political opponents. This wasn't a hearing. This was an unmasking. And Senator Kennedy did it just by using basic everyday logic. Brilliant. That's all I've got for today. What did you think? Did you see her contradict herself? Let me know in the comments below.